Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you on Friday, August 4th. It's right, first Friday of the month, labor report, and not much news there, although we did see silver get absolutely pummeled. As has become somewhat customary on these first of Friday of the month labor reports, although for some good news, since hey, it's a manipulated deal and that's going to happen, we learned to live with it. But an update on something a lot of people in the precious metals sector have been interested in, which is Andrew Maguire. Again, many of you remember about 2 months ago, he said, watch out in 26 or 28 days, which backed out to July 5th. And I'm guessing that most people watching this realize we haven't seen any great fireworks yet. Although I do have an update on what Andrew was talking about, and as some of my astute viewers have already mentioned, basically Andrew and a group of other fellows have been creating what to my knowledge will be the first precious metals backed crypto. It's called BullionCoin, and well, to keep it simple, it's basically a crypto backed by gold. I think there's a I don't want to get the details that I know of accurate here. I think there was a silver component. I'm not sure if that would be a separate coin or not. Perhaps that would be something to check into. But in either case, basically, we have Bitcoin, Litecoin, all these other coins that serve a variety of different functions. Now, I know a lot of the precious metal guys are a little antsy with Bitcoin because they feel it's something digital, unbacked by anything. To the counter, now I say this as a hardcore silver advocate, gold isn't really backed by anything. I mean, all these things are, what is it really backed by? I mean, it's, the gold, it's not like you use gold as a log to make a fire. Another advantage, of course, of silver. Can you tell that I love silver? Well, I mean, the thing with silver is that a lot of it is used, so there's actually a physical demand, and that's a great factor that I love about silver. So you're not just counting on that monetary component. With that said, I think gold will do quite well. But just pointing out that a lot of the time the argument against Bitcoin is that it's unbacked, or it doesn't have any intrinsic value. Well, you could kind of say that about anything, which again is not to say that gold doesn't have value. I believe it does, but just, how should we say, again, I say this as someone who's gone overboard with precious metals. I think it's always good to just keep an open mind, relax our assumptions, because, I mean, I spend an unhealthy amount of time thinking about this stuff, and I'm still just grasping Bitcoin and the cryptos and how they're used. Again, a lot of them have functions other than just the monetary value. But in either case, if you're interested in the crypto space and you're also a precious metals advocate, then BullionCoin actually, from what I've seen so far, and I was fortunate enough to be invited to a webinar where Andrew and a few of the other fellows that are running this explain more about how it works. So it's a really interesting idea. Again, I think from Andrew's standpoint, the main emphasis was to create some sort of mechanism where you can start eliminating all these paper shenanigans that it's amazing how much paper dictates the price of a physical asset, to the point where, in my opinion, the price has nothing to do with the physical supply and demand. If you're hearing that for the first time, I understand that can sound wild. Of course, keep in mind that negative interest rates and quantitative easing are pretty insane too. But yeah, that's how it works. This is all set in paper. Andrew has been a big advocate of having something that is determined by the physical demand I continue to agree with Andrew that at some point we're going to see some physical demand orders eventually overwhelm this paper supply, and people come in and say, hey, here's my contract, want my metal, it's not there. And if you have something like BullionCoin, where essentially you can trade gold and silver knowing that it's backed, similar to, again, I'm not an expert on the Shanghai exchange, although I believe that was one of the features that they wanted to set up there, so that people buy some sort of gold proxy or derivative or paper that is actually backed by something, similar to how the dollar used to actually be backed by the gold or silver. You didn't have just the ability to print endless paper with nothing behind it, and certainly I would call that unbacked. For anyone bashing cryptos, which again, I think there's arguments to be made either way. I'm finding myself more and more interested, but just simply in terms of unbacked things, well, would you rather have a crypto or a dollar? The dollar we know has no intrinsic value and is being printed insanely. Or you can do one better. You can get some BullionCoin where you have the coin backed by gold and silver. So it seems like a really interesting idea. Additionally, one of the things that they talked about quite a bit was it's set up on a bit of a network-based marketing system with, again, I hope I'm getting this right, and my friend Gavin, I have a feeling you're out there watching, so you feel free to comment if I misspeak here, but watch the webinar again yesterday to try and get these details right. Excuse me. Basically, the premise being that when gold, or we'll stick with gold and forget silver for now, when gold is introduced and a coin is created, for example, if you purchased a coin, gold's deposited in the account, or if you referred someone who purchased a coin through, your affiliate account, basically from the life of that coin, every time, so imagine we're a couple years from now and the dollar's done and people are using BullionCoin as currency, every time that coin is used, there's a small transaction fee, and the originator of the coin would receive a residual income. So let's say you deposited gold, or you purchased outright some coins and brought them into existence. My understanding is that for the life of that coin, as these transaction fees are being generated, and maybe people are going out paying for dinner with their BullionCoin account, so every time that coin is used, even if you don't continue to hold it anymore, you would receive a residual income from BullionCoin. So there's that factor. One thing I wasn't clear on yet, and I guess I'll be thinking about and asking about in the next couple weeks and months going forward, I don't know if there's going to be a premium. So will the coin trade just based on the price of gold, or if there's a lot of demand in a similar way that Bitcoin, for example, trades higher or lower, not only, Bitcoin not being tied to any underlying asset like gold, but I wasn't clear if there's a additional component. So let's say gold's sitting at 1,300. Can the price of BullionCoin go up or down based on the supply and demand of how many people want to be participating? My belief is yes. Again, we'll find out more as more information is released and the coin is launched. But in either case, again, if you subscribe to the view that we're nearing the end days of the system as we know it, which I certainly do, I just wish I knew how many days were left in it. Could be 5, could be 500. You'll be the first to know, so good reason to keep watching here. But again, it's just interesting to see the different ways the technology is being used, that people who understand what's going on are finding different solutions, which in the end leads me to feel that it doesn't have to be complete Armageddon, that just because this banker printed currency goes away, that life has to end. So in either case, it turns out Andrew Maguire has a Twitter feed too, which I highly recommend checking out. I understand there's a degree to which, and I find myself thinking this as well, and maybe that's just natural internet skepticism. Also, there are a lot of folks that speak in the gold and silver space. I don't want to say a lot, but there are some that I like to be careful with my wording, that I don't necessarily trust. I think there is some disinformation out there. Geez, certainly if you get any mainstream New York Times, Washington Times, CNBC, what do you call that, misinformation or Keynesian doctrine, there are also some folks out there that I think put information that's designed to mislead. So I know there's that when people hear Andrew, there's been a great deal of skepticism. Although, with that said, having listened to his interviews for years, having followed his actions, and also appreciating that, hey, he was on the webinar, the guy's sitting there looking right into the screen, showing his face. You can find him. Also has a Twitter feed. So just to the degree that I know people think he's this mystery man out there, I have not met him personally, although I know a couple of the folks in the industry, Craig Hemke, who runs the TF Metals Report, love his stuff, has mentioned that he's met him. I think Andrew is a legitimate guy that's trying to find solutions. Of course, anytime you're talking about depositing your metal into a vault, which you can think of similarly as depositing money into a bank, obviously you want to do your due diligence. There's a difference between holding a piece of metal in your hand and holding it anywhere. And you can even give something to a bank or a vault that person is trustworthy, and then, maybe who knows what happens. So there's always some degree of risk, although I think Andrew seems to be a pretty honest guy from what I've seen, and certainly it's exciting to see that he's coming up with a solution here that hopefully can make a big impact. Last point, and one question I asked, I didn't get answered on the webinar, was again back to the original quote from Andrew a couple months ago, where he said, we talked about the price reset, and this was what he was getting at, where I guess their expectation is that there's a lot of demand and orders going to be coming in, and metal will need to actually be there. And the one question I still have is really the timing of that, because certainly on the face of it, if I'm understanding it correctly, yes, seems like you could have a lot of demand and perhaps that could be something that substantially moves the price and changes these dynamics in the paper and physical markets. Although it intuitively seems to me like something that wouldn't happen overnight. Similar to how a lot of Andrew's talked about the ABX, which is an exchange where, I believe the ABX is the name of that exchange he's been talking about, where they wanted to have physical metal. Again, I think it's great that they have it, yet at the same time, these guys who are reading charts on the COMEX and getting fleeced by the banks day after day aren't necessarily going to go to it. I would think that if you have your choice between buying a paper contract that has no backing and buying something that, the metal's actually there, obviously, to me, it makes sense to get the one with the backing, although, shockingly enough, the rest of the world doesn't always agree with what I say or do. So I'm curious, and hopefully we'll be able to get some comment from Andrew, or perhaps someone on his team in terms of what their view is on that. Again, it was interesting that Andrew had that comment where it was a very specific date, which again has come and gone. I know there are some folks who aren't so happy about that. Although I find it's useful to distinguish, just because someone says something and it doesn't happen doesn't mean they're necessarily not being truthful. Sometimes we're all going with imperfect information here and using judgment. So factor that in. And again, hey, in the end, you got to make your own decisions. By all means, don't do it just because I say or think it. Although, hopefully I'm introducing a few things that you won't find elsewhere and can help you make a better decision. So with that said, we're going to wrap this one for today. Hopefully silver will stop getting pummeled from that job report. I don't think the price action has anything to do with the actual economic data as usual. But in either case, it's good to see that things are developing. There are solutions on the way, and hopefully that day for silver holders will be coming soon. With that said, leave your comments below. Go out, have a great weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday. Thanks for watching.